The road along the cliffs of Skyron was treacherous, a narrow path carved between the mountain and the sea. Theseus, his gaze fixed on the distant promise of Athens, pressed onward. The sea wind, thick with the scent of salt and iron, whipped around him, and the roar of the surf crashing against the rocks below was a constant, thunderous companion. It was a lonely path, but soon that loneliness was shattered. Footsteps, fast and desperate, pounded the earth behind him. They were uneven, the sound of someone running for their life.
A young man stumbled into view, his tunic torn, and his body streaked with blood and dirt.
His eyes, wide with a primal fear, locked on to Theseus. "Please," he gasped, his voice ragged. "Help me! They're hunting me down." Before Theseus could fully process the plea, a group of soldiers rounded the bend in the road.
Their bows were drawn, arrows nocked, and their leader was already shouting orders.
Theseus's hand instinctively went to the club at his belt, drawing it just slightly. His eyes, calm and wary, flickered between the desperate youth and the approaching soldiers. He was a keeper of justice, not a blind protector. "If they chase you," Theseus said, his voice even and firm, "you must have done something to deserve it." "I do know. Aid criminals." He took a step forward, his presence alone a challenge to both parties.
"But if you are one indeed, I'll be the one to end you." The young man opened his mouth to protest, to explain, but he never got the chance.
An arrow hissed through the air, a dark streak against the sky, and struck him squarely in the shoulder. He cried out, a sharp, guttural sound of pain, and collapsed to the ground, his blood spilling onto the dusty path.
The soldiers, panting from their pursuit, finally caught up.
"What is this man's crime?" Theseus demanded, his voice ringing with authority. He stood his ground, a bulwark between the soldiers and their fallen prey.
One of the soldiers, the captain, stepped forward.
"He is the son of a traitor," he declared. He tried to rescue his mother from the dungeon. "Her name is Alope, imprisoned for treason against our king CERCYON." He failed, of course, and fled. "But now we have him." Theseus listened, his expression unreadable. Treason was a serious charge. He was a prince of Athens, a future king, and the law was paramount. He nodded curtly. "Then take him." The soldiers wasted no time. They grabbed the wounded youth Hippothys, as they called him, and began dragging him away.
The boy's cries of pain and protest faded down the road.
Theseus watched them go in silence, his hand still resting on his club. He had upheld the law of this land. Yet, as he turned back toward Athens, something in his heart felt deeply unsettled. The soldier's story felt too clean, too simple.
By midday, the blistering sun scorched the plains of Eleusis.
The air shimmered with a dizzying heat, baking the earth until it cracked.
At the city's center stood a massive, circular arena, its floor covered in fine yellow sand that glowed under the relentless sun.
The stands were packed to overflowing with men, women, and even children. In the heart of that arena stood a man who seemed less human and more creature carved from living stone. His hair was white, yet his body was that of a man in his prime, powerful as an ox. His chest and arms bulged with thick, corded muscle, and his sun-darkened skin gleamed like polished bronze. This was CERCYON, the tyrant king of Eleusis.
He ruled not by law or lineage, but by the sheer, brutal might of his fists. His eyes, cold and predatory, scanned the roaring crowd.
Across from him stood his latest challenger.
The man was perhaps 30 years old, but next to CERCYON, he looked like a boy.
He was an outsider, a traveler who had made the fatal mistake of entering Eleusis.
A referee, looking small and insignificant between the two, raised his hand.
The signal
Was given.
The two opponents crouched low, circling each other like wolves. Then, with a speed that defied his massive frame, CERCYON lunged. His arms, like iron bands, snapped around the challenger's waist.
With a guttural roar that echoed through the arena, he lifted the man high above his head, holding him there for a terrifying moment as the crowd's cheers reached a fever pitch.
Then he slammed him down.
The ground itself seemed to tremble from the impact. Sand exploded outward like surf breaking on the shore. The challenger gasped once, a choked, final sound, and then lay still, a broken shape in the sand.
The referee rushed forward and knelt, placing a hand on the man's chest, feeling for a breath.
After a moment, he looked up at the king. "He lives,"
he announced quickly. CERCYON grunted, unimpressed.
"Then he will live to remember who rules here." He turned his gaze from the broken man and looked up at the stands,
Raising his voice to a booming shout that carried over their cheers.
"The citizens of Eleusis are mine to spare or to punish as I see fit."
The audience howled with savage approval, their screams a symphony of adoration for their brutal king.
CERCYON drank in their adoration like fine wine.
Later that day, as the sun began its descent, Theseus finally entered the city gates of Eleusis. The city was a paradox. The air was filled with the lively sounds of commerce and the grim silence of death.
Market stalls were bustling with activity, yet in the distance he saw wagons carrying away bodies shrouded in white linen, leaving faint trails of blood on the cobblestones.
Curiosity and that same unsettled feeling from the road compelled him to ask. He approached a merchant who was packing away his wares for the day. "These dead?" Theseus asked, gesturing toward one of the grim processions. "Who are they?"
The merchant glanced around nervously before leaning in, his voice low and filled with a weary grimness.
"Victims of the king's sport," he muttered. "CERCYON forces every foreigner who enters our city to wrestle him. He kills them all, unless they can somehow defeat him bare. It is his law."
The merchant then looked closer at Theseus, recognition dawning in his eyes.
"You are the one who met the soldiers on the road, aren't you?"
That youth, you let them take Hippothys. He was no traitor. The man's voice was laced with sorrow and anger.
"He only tried to free his mother, Alope. She was imprisoned unjustly by her own father, King CERCYON." The pieces clicked into place. The desperate youth, the convenient story of treason, the king's brutal sport. It was all connected. A fire ignited in Theseus's eyes, replacing his earlier uncertainty with cold, hard fury. His hand tightened on the grip of his club, the wood feeling solid and real against his palm. He looked from the merchant to the grand palace looming over the city. "There is no justice," Theseus said, his voice low and dangerous. "Where might rules alone?" He knew what he had to do. He had not come to Eleusis seeking a fight, but justice demanded one. A king who ruled by fear and murder was no king at all.
And Theseus, a champion of the people, would not let such a tyrant stand.
That night, a shadow slipped through the darkness,
moving with purpose toward the royal dungeon of Eleusis.
2 guards, lulled by the late hour,
nodded at their posts, dozing fitfully.
They never saw him coming.
In a single, fluid motion, the figure struck them both down, silent, precise, and utterly final.
This was Theseus, Prince of Trojan, and his mission had just begun.
He found the key, unlocked the heavy cell door, and stepped inside.
A young man, his face gaunt from despair, stared back in disbelief.
It was Hippothys, the grandson of the Tyrant King.
Why are you here? He stammered. Theseus wasted no words.
There's no time for questions. Follow me and be silent. They moved like ghosts through the winding stone corridors, the air thick with the smell of damp and despair. The exit was just ahead, a faint promise of moonlight beckoning them.
But as they neared it, torches suddenly flared to life, casting long, dancing shadows that turned the corridor into a cage of light and dark.
At the end of the passage stood a group of soldiers, and in front of them, a man whose presence alone seemed to crush the air.
He was in his 50s, but his shoulders were as broad as a bull's, his muscles coiled like thick ropes. This was CERCYON, the king of Eleusis, a man whose reputation for cruelty was known throughout the land. His voice rumbled, deep and heavy, like shifting rock. Who dares trespass in my halls? Theseus stepped forward, his posture defiant, his gaze unwavering. I am Theseus, Prince of Trojan.
I seek no quarrel with you, but I will not stand aside while injustice reigns. CERCYON let out a sneering laugh. A prince, are you?
A little boy playing hero. His eyes glinted with a cruel amusement. Then we shall settle this as kings should in the arena. A single combat to decide it all. Bats, mark T's. Boy, if you lose, you forfeit your kingdom. Trojan will be mine.
The soldiers behind him grinned, their hands resting on their swords. This was the trap.
Theseus, however, simply smirked, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. I have no right to wager my people's land or their freedom. That is not mine to give.
He paused,
Letting the weight of his words hang in the air.
But if you say
you can take my club and my life along with it.
CERCYON considered the offer.
the boy's life was a small price, but the public humiliation of a prince would be a victory in itself. Gabe, hazlo. Delibérate. No. So be it. Tomorrow at dawn, the arena will be your stage and your grave. With that, the king turned and departed.
His soldiers closing ranks behind him, leaving Theseus and Hippothys once more in the encroaching darkness.
The escape had failed, but a new, more dangerous path had opened.
The next morning,
The sun blazed like molten gold over Eleusis.
The city's arena, a massive stone circle built for spectacle and bloodshed, was overflowing with spectators.
The air buzzed with a tense, feverish energy.
From the edge of the sand, Hippothys and his mother, Alope, watched with hearts pounding in their chests.
Two figures emerged from opposite tunnels, stepping into the blinding light.
On one side stood the aged but formidable CERCYON, his broad shoulders and scarred physique a testament to a lifetime of brutality. On the other was the youthful Theseus, a prince whose eyes burned with a righteous fire.
A single, piercing horn blast sounded across the arena, signaling the start of the duel.
CERCYON didn't hesitate.
He attacked first, moving with a speed that defied his age.
He charged like a battering ram, his arms reaching.
Before Theseus could fully react, the king had seized him by the waist, lifting him clean off the ground with a grunt of raw power. The world spun in a blur of sand and sky as the crowd roared its approval for their king. But Theseus was a hero forged in challenge. Not just a prince by birth, as he was hoisted into the air, he twisted his body, driving a powerful knee into CERCYON's ribs. The impact was jarring. They crashed to the ground together in a cloud of dust. They rolled across the sand, locked in a brutal embrace like two wild beasts, muscles straining, sweat and dust mingling on their skin. CERCYON, with the advantage of weight and experience in this kind of savage fight, tried to pin Theseus down. His massive forearm pressed hard into Theseus's throat, cutting off his air. The younger man gasped, his vision starting to blur at the edges, his lungs screaming for oxygen.
He's too strong. A desperate thought flashed through his mind. I can't overpower him directly.
He was being crushed. The life squeezed out of him. It was in that moment of near defeat that instinct took over. Pure, unthinking survival. With a final burst of energy, Theseus contorted his body, ducking low and pivoting with incredible speed. In a flash, he was behind CERCYON's back. He didn't give the king a moment to recover. His fists became a blur, striking with brutal precision rapid blows to the gut. A stunning hook to the jaw, a sharp jab to the temple.
CERCYON staggered, his head reeling from the unexpected and ferocious counterattack.
He was dazed, his unbreakable strength momentarily failing him. Seizing the opening, Theseus let out a primal roar that echoed through the stunned arena. This ends now.
With a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, he got his shoulder under the older man and lifted him clean off his feet. For a split second, the mighty king of Eleusis was airborne, suspended against the bright morning sky. Then, with a tremendous final heave, Theseus hurled him down onto the hard-packed earth.
Atuanderos. Sickening crack echoed through the arena.
Dust billowed up, momentarily obscuring the scene.
When the dust finally began to clear, CERCYON lay motionless on the sand, his body twisted at an unnatural angle.
The tyrant king of Eleusis was dead.
For a long, breathless moment, a profound silence hung over the arena.
The crowd, which had been baying for blood just moments before, was utterly still.
Then,
a single voice cheered. Another joined, and then another, until the entire arena erupted in a deafening jubilant roar. The people of Eleusis were free.
Hippothos and Allope ran onto the sand, their faces streaked with tears of relief and gratitude. They fell to their knees before Theseus, unable to speak. The crowd began to chant, a single, powerful voice rising from thousands of throats. Theseus, Theseus, be our king. But Theseus, standing tall amidst the celebration, raised a hand for silence.
The crowd quieted, their eyes fixed on their liberator.
No, he said, his voice clear and firm. My path lies elsewhere.
Eleusis already has its rightful heir.
He turned his gaze to the young man kneeling before him.
The blood of your mother and your grandfather stains this city's history. It is your duty to cleanse it. Rule with justice, fairness, and compassion. Hippothys looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears of gratitude and resolve. He bowed his head deeply. I will, my lord. I swear it. And so, his work in Eleusis complete, Theseus took up his trusty club once more. He turned away from the cheering crowds and the offered crown and walked toward the horizon.
The long, dusty road to Athens
Stretched out before him, promising new adventures and greater challenges.
That day, CERCYON's tyranny ended, and the city of Eleusis found new peace under its young, just king.
Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey into Greek mythology. If you enjoyed the story of Theseus and his heroic deeds, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more epic tales. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an adventure. See you in the next video.